There we go. All right. So we are on chapter 9, section 8. I am going to share my screen. Okay, whoops. Where are we here? No, that's not it. Sorry about that. Wrong one. Of course, this thing's in the way all the time. Wow, I'm gonna have to pull this back up again. Hold on just a minute, everybody. I don't know where that went. Okay, chapter 9. Section 8. All right. Grandeur versus grandiosity. All right. Grandeur is of God and only of Him. Therefore, it is in you. Whenever you become aware of it, however dimly, you abandon the ego automatically. Because in the presence of the grandeur of God, the meaninglessness of the ego becomes perfectly apparent. When this occurs, even though it does not understand it, the ego believes that its enemy has struck and attempts to offer gifts to induce you to return to its protection. Self-inflation is the only offering it can make. The grandiosity of the ego is its alternative to the grandeur of God. Which will you choose? Grandiosity is always a cover for despair. It is without hope because it is not real. It is an attempt to counteract your littleness based on the belief that the littleness is real. Without this belief, grandiosity is meaningless, and you could not possibly want it. The essence of grandiosity is competitiveness because it always involves attack. It is a delusional attempt to outdo, but not to undo. We said before that the ego vacillates between suspiciousness and viciousness. It remains suspicious as long as you despair of yourself. It shifts to viciousness when you decide not to tolerate self-abasement and seek relief. Then it offers you the illusion of attack as a solution. The ego does not understand the difference between grandeur and grandiosity because it sees no difference between miracle impulses and ego alien beliefs of its own. I told you that the ego is aware of threat to its existence, but makes no distinctions between these two very different kinds of threat. Its profound sense of vulnerability renders it incapable of judgment, except in terms of attack. When the ego experiences threat, its only decision is whether to attack now or to withdraw to attack later. If you accept its offer of grandiosity, it will attack immediately. If you do not, it will wait. The ego is immobilized in the presence of God's grandeur because His grandeur establishes your freedom. Even the faintest hint of your reality literally drives the ego from your mind because you will give up all investment in it. Grandeur is totally without illusions. Because it is real, it is compellingly convincing. Yet the conviction of reality will not remain with you unless you do not allow the ego to attack it. The ego will make every effort to recover and mobilize its energies against your release. It will tell you that you are insane and argue that grandeur cannot be a real part of you because of the littleness in which it believes. Yet your grandeur is not delusional because you did not make it. You made grandiosity and are afraid of it because it is a form of attack. But your grandeur is of God, who created it out of His love. from your grandeur, you can only bless, because your grandeur is your abundance. By blessing, you hold it in your mind, protecting it from illusions, and keeping yourself in the mind of God. Remember always that you cannot be anywhere except in the mind of God. When you forget this, you will despair and you will attack. The ego depends solely on your willingness to tolerate it. If you're willing to look upon your grandeur, you cannot despair. And therefore, you cannot want the ego. Your grandeur is God's answer to the ego, because it is true. Littleness and grandeur cannot coexist, nor is it possible for them to alternate. Littleness and grandiosity can and must alternate, since both are untrue and are therefore on the same level. Being the level of shift, it is experienced as shifting, and extremes are its essential characteristic. Truth and littleness are denials of each other, because grandeur is truth. Truth does not vacillate. It is always true. When grandeur slips away from you, you have replaced it with something you have made. Perhaps it is the belief in littleness. Perhaps it is the belief in grandiosity. Yet it must be insane, because it is not true. Your grandeur will never deceive you, but your illusions always will. Illusions are deceptions. You cannot triumph, but you are exalted. And in your exalted state, you seek others like you and rejoice with them. It is easy to distinguish grandeur from grandiosity, because love is returned and pride is not. Pride will not produce miracles and will therefore deprive you of the true witnesses to your reality. Truth is not obscure nor hidden, but its obviousness to you lies in the joy you bring to its witnesses who show it to you. They attest to your grandeur, but they cannot attest to pride, because pride is not shared. God wants you to behold what He created, because it is His joy. Can your grandeur be arrogant when God Himself witnesses to it? And what can be real that has no witnesses? What good can come of it? And if no good can come of it, the Holy Spirit cannot use it. What He cannot transform to the will of God does not exist at all. Grandiosity is delusional, because it is used to replace your grandeur. Yet what God has created cannot be replaced. God is incomplete without you, because His grandeur is total, and you cannot be missing from it. You are altogether irreplaceable in the mind of God. No one else can fill your part in it. And while you leave your part of it empty, your eternal place merely waits for your return. God, through His voice, reminds you of it, and God Himself keeps your extensions safe within it. Yet you do not know them until you return to them. You cannot replace the kingdom, and you cannot replace yourself. God, who knows your value, would not have it so. And so, it is not so. Your value is in God's mind, and therefore not in yours alone. To accept yourself as God created you, you cannot be arrogance, because it is the denial of arrogance. To accept your littleness is arrogant, because it means that you believe your evaluation of yourself is truer than God's. Yet if truth is indivisible, your evaluation of yourself must be God's. You did not establish your value, and it needs no defense. Nothing can attack it, nor prevail over it. It does not vary. It merely is. Ask the Holy Spirit what it is, and He will tell you. but do not be afraid of its answer, because it comes from God. It is an exalted answer because of its source, but the source is true, and so is its answer. Listen, and do not question what you hear, for God does not deceive. He would have you replace the ego's belief in littleness with his own exalted answer to what you are, so that you can cease to question it and know it for what it is. That reminds me of what I was talking about earlier. So, for example, I was talking about getting on social media and seeing some of the posts that I was following on this one Instagram feed about the Super Bowl last night. And they were talking about Taylor Swift and some of the people that she was with in her box, and this particular, person was saying, that she's, the devil incarnate, whatever, and that all the people with her were doing casting some kind of demonic spells. And by looking at their hand gesture, they were in this demonic trance, and it had to do with child trafficking. And then, they got the whole blurb below was all about Biden, and it just got crazy, way down the rabbit hole. And my initial thought was, these people are so like off on the deep end. Like, why can they not see that they're dividing, they're like part of the division. Like, I don't understand spewing this nonsense and just like creating this rhetoric that just divides people. And I thought, well, what can I interject here to like help people realize that they're dividing everybody? And every time I thought of something to say, it didn't feel right energetically, it felt yucky, right? So I was in that part of littleness, right? Feeling that anything I had to say was little and was going to be attacked. And my point of view was going to be attacked because in my mind, I wasn't speaking to people who agreed with me. I would be speaking to people who didn't agree with me, even though there were a few people on there that clearly would have agreed with me, right? And I was looking through it and I'm like, but what can I say to make a difference? And so this was kind of tumbling through my mind most of the morning. And then right before I jumped on today, I had this completely other thought. And I was like, oh, those other people are me. They're just acting in a way that's not in alignment with the way I'm acting right now. So if it goes back to say, like, what would you tell your younger self about life? If you could go back and tell your younger self something that would help them in life, what would you tell them? So I thought of everybody as my younger self. Like, oh, what would I tell my younger self that wasn't in alignment with love for some reason at that moment, wasn't in alignment with truth at that moment? What would I tell that younger self? And my first thought was to say, I love you. Remember that I love you. And remember that we are all one mind of God. We're all part of the one mind of God. We just are in this dream of this grandiosity, right? Or this illusory feeling of being little, right? So it vacillates between I'm little and I'm grandiosity and I'm going to fight for what I believe in, right? So, and then you get into this fight mode and then it's like, oh no, I'm going to be little again because I'm going to get attacked, right? So it's true. It's a vacillation between I'm going to fight and talk about what I believe in and stick up for my rights and stick up for the things I believe in and stick up. And it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, you're still in that part of grandiosity, right? Even if you think you're right, the fact that you think you have to fight for something to begin with means you're not in alignment with the one mind of God. You're still separating yourself, right? And you're putting yourself in opposition to what's right and what's wrong. Like there's two different parts. There aren't two different parts. There's only one. There's only one mind of God, right? So then I thought, well, I would just say, I love you. And remember that we all love each other. Remember, we're here just to experience this life, and our only function is happiness, right? I mean, what else could you possibly say?
Doesn't that grandiosity, that whole concept of grandiosity, go along with judgment? Like you get yourself,
Right.
get all puffed up. And then this is what makes me crazy is the finger pointing and the name calling and sitting in a place of judgment. And it seems to be that those all are things that are precursors to these, as you said, the conspiracy theories and, people just getting wacky and going down that rabbit hole. But it's the judgment. I'm so sick of people having something to say about everything they know nothing about.
But think about what you just said. I'm sick of people. But
Yeah,
you are the people.
I am
You,
the people.
right? So you're sick of yourself, right? I mean, that's the part that's crazy, because as soon as you pick a side, whether we feel it's right or
And,
wrong, whether we feel, but we're the loving side, not the fearful side.
yeah.
It doesn't matter
But let me
because we picked a
qualify that,
side.
Terry, because I said I'm sick of the people doing the judging. It's the judgment I think I have the contempt for, as
Yes.
opposed to the people. So I just want to clarify
No,
that.
I'm saying the reason I said that is because I felt myself saying the same thing.
Yeah, okay, I get
Like,
it.
why are these people acting this way? And it's like, wait a minute.
Wait,
I am these people. Like, that is just my one mind that is separated. And I don't like what I'm seeing because I'm judging it as wrong. And I'm judging them as not being complete and perfect in the one mind of God. Right? Hi, Pam. So we're talking about grandeur versus grandiosity. The grandeur of God, meaning that we're all part of the one mind of God, and we all have that grandeur and that God's glory, right? Versus grandiosity, when we're like, we feel strongly about our way is the right way, right? And we have to attack because of it, right? We have to stand up for it because of it, or that we're getting attacked, right? And we're little, so it vacillates between we're big and we're little, and we're big and we're little, right? Where the grandeur of God is, you always know yourself as omnipotent. There is nothing grander, right, than that one mind of God, and just the love that we all have for each other, because we aren't really separate. We're all part of that one mind of God that's joined.
Yeah, so you're not comparing. So you're
Right.
not bigger or smaller than other. You just are.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I see to get there, I have to notice when I'm doing the other. I can't remember which word. I don't know where we are in the book, which is the grandeur.
Chapter 9, yes.
Okay. But so I find out it's a lot of just not that, and then remembering what that, yes, it's that.
Yes.
And being much less involved in those arguments of who's right and who's wrong. It just it doesn't come up that much anymore. If it will come up with my husband, I'm like, pretty quick. The other day,
Right.
it went on a little more, but I kind of knew it. And after I said, wow, that went on for a little bit, the exchange back and forth.
Right.
And I'm like, that doesn't really happen that much. It was something little. I have no idea what it was about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
That
in those
ended it.
moments.
I was going to say, I really liked what you said about what would you say to your younger self, like to get yourself kind of out of that thinking, and back to we're all one and out of the littleness. That was really
Right.
helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was saying, the example I used, Pam, before you joined was, I was on social media and, you know, I had watched a little bit of the Super Bowl. We had some people over and we had a bit of a party here and, you know, I saw a couple of things. I really wasn't engaged or in the whole thing much at all. But I was seeing some posts about, you know, Taylor Swift and the people that were in her box, and they were saying that they were casting spells and they were part of this demonic tribe, and they were, you know, it's right in plain sight and you should see it. They're doing this horrible thing and child trafficking. And then I was like, what? So, you know,
Wow.
and I was like, and it was somebody I had followed because they had posted something that at the time I thought was wonderful, and I wanted to learn more from them, but then I was going down their feed and it's like all this like conspiracy theory stuff, and I'm like, wow, that I felt that's so, I was so kind of like, ah, you know, why would you think that, and why are you thinking like that? And I kind of wanted to jump in and defend, right, and be like, but that's not what's happened at all. You're not really seeing it clearly. And then even that didn't feel right. That felt yucky, you know, and I'm like, what would I say? And I just didn't say anything and went for a long walk this morning. And right before I jumped on here to Course in Miracles, this thought just came to me like, oh, they aren't the other. They're me. Like, that's me saying those things. That's just a part of me that isn't in alignment with the truth about what I am. So I was saying to Cynthia, it's almost like if you could say, what would I say to my younger self that would help them the most in life? You know, what would I go back and say to them? And I guess I would just say, I love you. We're in this together. Like, we are all part of the one mind of God. We're not separate. There's no one's out to get you. No one's out to hurt you. No one's out to take anything from you. They can't take anything from you because we have everything. We are part of that one mind of God that has everything, you know. So that's the grandeur of being in that place of at one-ment versus the grandiosity of being in that place of two separate, you know, or multiple separate ideas that are fighting against each other.
I so relate to that. I also have a friend on Facebook who's doing the same thing, and I was just so surprised.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to think, well, you know, when we've really forgiven the other and ourselves, then we see only the blessing and only the good stuff that ever happened. And to try to see them as my savior. Oh, this is happening to show me my own unconscious guilt that I'm projecting and whatever. That's all unreal. And it's, yeah, and I don't know whether like to not follow him. Sometimes I'm like, because it's been coming
Yeah.
for other, I'm like, what? Thought I knew this person, but not that well.
Right. But that's my point. And then how do you go? It always brings me back to my dream because it was so vivid and so real. That dream I had that I'm sitting across this table from this red-haired German woman who is screaming at me. She is pissed, right? And she's screaming in this German language. And I don't know how to speak German, right? But for some reason I knew it was German. And for some reason I knew she was making sense, whatever she was mad at me about and yelling. And I was trying to like explain to her that, hey, we are all part of the one mind, like we're together. So that was the first thought. And then the second thought was, you know, I am you and you are me. And then the third part was, wait a minute, I'm having a dream right now. So you really are me. Like, I'm completely making you up right now. So you are me. Even though you look different and sound different and you're pissed off at me for something, I have no idea why you're mad at me, but you are me. And then all of a sudden she stopped and she smiled and she like burst into all these red glitter sparkles. It was the weirdest dream. But that's what I come back to every time I think that I'm disagreeing with the other. It's like the other is still me. Like all these others that look different and have different opinions and might be mad at me or at something that for whatever reason, they're still me. I'm still making it up, right? Because I'm still in the illusion. So I'm making all of this up, whether it seems like a dream or not. According to A Course in Miracles, it's a dream. So we're making it up and we're projecting it all. So if we can just get to that place of at 1 minute, like, oh, wait a minute, I'm making this up. Like, let's get back to what's real. Let's get back to the grandeur of God that we all are, because we're all part of the one mind, and stop feeling little. I have some crazy dreams, I'll give you that.
You have some cool dreams though, Tara.
I do.
I don't have any that even come close to that. I have really bizarre ones that I can't even really repeat out loud because they're so strange and so twisted. And I'm like, where did that come from? So
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, any more conversation about grandeur, grandiosity? All right, we are starting a new chapter, chapter 10, the idols of sickness. So I will share that. See where this takes us today. Nothing beyond yourself can make you fearful or loving, because nothing is beyond you. Time and eternity are both in your mind and will conflict until you perceive time solely as a means to regain eternity. You cannot do this as long as you believe that anything happening to you is caused by factors outside yourself. You must learn that time is solely at your disposal and that nothing in the world can take this responsibility from you. You can violate God's laws in your imagination, but you cannot escape from them. They were established for your protection and are as inviolate as your safety. God created nothing beside you, and nothing beside you exists, for you are part of him. What except him can exist? Nothing beyond him can happen, because nothing except him is real. Your creations add to him as you do, but nothing is added that is different, because everything has always been. What can upset you except the ephemeral? And how can the ephemeral be real if you are God's only creation and he created you eternal? Your holy mind establishes everything that happens to you. Every response you make to everything you perceive is up to you, because your mind determines your perception of it. God does not change his mind about you, for he is not uncertain of himself, and what he knows can be known, because he does not know it only for himself. He created you for himself, but he gave you the power to create for yourself, so you would be like him. That is why your mind is holy. Can anything exceed the love of God? Can anything then exceed your will? Nothing can reach you from beyond it, because being in God, you encompass everything. Believe this, and you will realize how much is up to you. When anything threatens your peace of mind, ask yourself, has God changed his mind about me? Then accept his decision, for it is indeed changeless, and refuse to change your mind about yourself. God will never decide against you, or he would be deciding against himself. Well, that kind of ties in nicely to what we were just talking about.
And a lot about what I was talking about right before you started recording,
Yes.
about how you bring stuff in. And I'm still struggling with stuff that I believe happened to me externally, but that I really don't want to, I don't want to believe that I brought this on myself. I do struggle with that. Why would anybody bring on their own personal hell? I really have a hard time with.
I think the better question is, and this is going to seem harsh, and I don't mean it to be that way. Maybe it's a perception of what hell is, right? Because we're so attached to the things that the ego wants, and we think those things are going to make us happy. And when those things are ripped away from us, we feel like that's hell, right? All those things that made me happy just got ripped away from me. And why would God do that to me? Why would God rip all those things away that made me happy? And maybe the real answer is to let you realize that those are not really the things that make you happy. You thought they made you happy because they gave you a sense of belonging, a sense of safety, a sense of worth, but it was all still within the world of the ego, still within the gifts of the ego, right? And it's still that belief in littleness, like these are all the things that are really, really important, because I think of myself as being so small that all of these things seem really big to me. And God's saying, but you're so much bigger than that. You're so much more than that. But we don't feel that way at the moment, right? We feel like all these things are being taken away. Like we worked so hard for these things. These are important things. We've invested in these things. And these are the things that matter.
I can let go of all of the things. Like I'm past that. I get it that it's not about the things.
Right.
I think one of the things that maybe I was attached to that I still struggle with is my ability to trust. It absolutely has jaded my ability to let my guard down enough to truly trust, because that was in my mind, my perception was a betrayal of that trust at the deepest level, even though that maybe they teach you there's no levels of miracles, there's no level. Well, you know what? I like I said, I'm back to, I struggle with that because I feel like my experiences of betrayal, and that's what I miss the most, is feeling like I can trust people. It's a
Yeah.
very select few that I am allowing myself that vulnerability. And it's
So
well,
yeah, and I hear you on that too, because those are all things that I've dealt with, like in all my relationships.
absolutely, I know you have.
And yeah, and I feel like I've gotten to a point where I don't need to trust anyone because I don't want anything from them. I don't know if that, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like I don't expect to trust others within this illusion because I know everybody's still working on themselves. And
Exactly.
they're not capable of giving me that kind of security or safety. Like no one in this world can give me anything that I need. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Because this is a world of illusions. The only person that can give me anything that I need is me. And because it's only me, I don't need to trust anybody. I just need to know that I am love, and that love that bubbles up from me is what I share with the world, which is also me, right? And so it becomes, instead of like, what am I needing from everything and everybody? Nothing. I just need to be whole and complete and know who I am, so that I can then share and expand and extend that. And it's the opposite of what we're taught, right? From when we're little, we're taught, be good and be kind, and everybody will love you, and give everybody everything you have, and then you'll be safe. And it's just the complete opposite of all that, right?
Mhm.
And it's an undoing and an unlearning, and yeah, it's just a
Had that,
whole new.
I've had it flipped around on me too, where it says, well, maybe it's something in yourself that you don't trust.
And it's not even about that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
I think it comes down to just knowing yourself as love, and and aligning with that grandeur, right? Because I think for a lot of people, it's like, but I want that feeling. I want that feeling of love, and I want that excitement, and I want that that feeling of being in love, right? Which so many times is really just being in need disguised as love. But we've done it over and over and over again so many times that we've forgotten, or don't even know, that it's not really love, it's need. Like, I need you to love me because I'm feeling small, and I want that feeling of love coming from you so that I feel okay. Right? And it's just such a backwards way of what it's a paradox, right? This entire world is a paradox. So to feel that feeling of grandeur and love and ecstatic love, it has to start here. And then it has to go out and connect from that place of overflowing and bubbling with love. And then you can kind of feel it, with others, and share it with others, and have that kind of back and forthness. It's an interesting inside out world.
Hmm.
It reminds me of I've been betrayed in my relationships, and I had an Al-Anon sponsor, and she said, love people, trust God. And it was such a simple way of putting that, and I kind of got it. I hadn't thought of it that way before she said that, but yeah,
That's
that one really works for
That's-
me.
yeah, that's wonderful.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
Love people, trust God. I love that too, Pam. Perfectly said in a
Mhm.
simple statement.
Mhm. Then you stop expecting things of other people. You
Mhm.
already know God is in them. You can trust that. I can trust that, just like God is in me. I can
I
trust
love
that.
I have no expectations. My cynicism has tinged all of that. I expect nothing, because if I have no expectations, I can't be disappointed. So,
And then you realize finally there's nothing to be disappointed in, because they couldn't give you anything anyway that you don't already have.
I already have, yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts before we keep going? See what else we can get into here. And there we go. At home in God. You do not know your creations simply because you would decide against them, as long as your mind is split. And to attack what you have created is impossible. But remember that it is as impossible for God. The law of creation is that you love your creations as yourself because they are part of you. Everything that was created is therefore perfectly safe because the laws of God protect it by his love. Any part of your mind that does not know this has banished itself from knowledge because it has not met its conditions. Who could have done this but you? Recognize this gladly, for in this recognition lies the realization that your banishment is not of God and therefore does not exist. You are at home in God, dreaming of exile, but perfectly capable of awakening to reality. Is it your decision to do so? You recognize from your own experience that what you see in dreams you think is real while you're asleep. Yet the instant you waken, you realize that everything that seemed to happen in the dream did not happen at all. You do not think this strange, even though all the laws of what you awakened to were violated while you slept. Is it not possible that you merely shifted from one dream to another without really waking? Would you bother to reconcile what happened in conflicting dreams, or would you dismiss both together if you discovered that reality is in accord with neither? You do not remember being awake. When you hear the Holy Spirit, you may feel better because loving then seems possible to you, but you do not remember yet that it once was so. And it is in this remembering that you will know it can be so again. What is possible has not yet been accomplished. Yet, what has once been is so now, if it is eternal. When you remember, you will know that what you remember is eternal and therefore is now. You will remember everything the instant you desire it wholly. For if to desire wholly is to create, you will have willed away the separation, returning your mind simultaneously to your creator and your creations. Knowing them, you will have no wish to sleep, but only the desire to waken and be glad. Dreams will be impossible because you will want only truth. And being at last your will, it will be yours. So why are we all so afraid to wake up?
Somewhere in the course, it says, when that's all you want, that's all you'll get,
Right.
is to wake up.
Mm-hmm. But you have to wholly want it.
Right.
Yeah.
And if that's not what I'm seeing, it's because that's not what I wanted to see.
Right.
But then the good news is we can change our minds in that instant.
That's right.
That we realize it's always there.
Yeah. And I guess,
didn't-
yeah, that's where it comes, I think, Alicia, when we were talking about, it feels like everything's being ripped away from us, right? I guess when we're finally at that point where we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, we'll wholly want it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You reach that threshold. Okay, I'm done.
I'm completely done with the
D-U-N.
dream. I
D-U-N
wholly want
done.
it now. Yeah, I know. I remember hitting that point in my life, and I was done with it. It was scary though, because I went through a really dark depression. But I was done with all of this. Done with, like you said, didn't trust anybody, didn't I got to that, I was just pissed off with the whole dream, and I was done with it. And I got really depressed, and it was scary because I didn't see the light inside of me then. I didn't acknowledge it. The veil was too thick. But when it finally got down to the last possible moment, there was this little tiny ember, and I was like, what's that? It was such a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can relate to that very much.
Mhm. Okay, let's see. Yeah, we have 15 minutes. Shall we keep going? The decision to forget. Unless you first know something, you cannot dissociate it. Knowledge must precede dissociation, so that dissociation is nothing more than a decision to forget. What has been forgotten then appears to be fearful, but only because the dissociation is an attack on truth. You are fearful because you have forgotten, and you have replaced your knowledge by an awareness of dreams because you are afraid of your dissociation, not of what you have dissociated. When what you have dissociated is accepted, it ceases to be fearful. Yet to give up the dissociation of reality brings more than merely lack of fear. In this decision lie joy and peace and the glory of creation. Offer the Holy Spirit only your willingness to remember, for He retains the knowledge of God and of yourself for you, waiting for your acceptance. Give up gladly everything that would stand in the way of your remembering, for God is in your memory. His voice will tell you that you are part of Him when you are willing to remember Him and know your own reality again. Let nothing in this world delay your remembering of Him, for in this remembering is the knowledge of yourself. To remember is merely to restore to your mind what is already there. You do not make what you remember. You merely accept again what is already there, but was rejected. The ability to accept truth in this world is the perceptual counterpart of creating in the kingdom. God will do His part if you will do yours, and His return in exchange for yours is the exchange of knowledge for perception. Nothing is beyond His will for you, but signify your will to remember Him, and behold, He will give you everything but for the asking. When you attack, you are denying yourself. You're specifically teaching yourself that you are not what you are. Your denial of reality precludes the acceptance of God's gift because you have accepted something else in its place. If you understand that this is always an attack on truth, and truth is God, you will realize why it is always fearful. If you further recognize that you are part of God, you will understand why it is that you always attack yourself first. All attack is self-attack. It cannot be anything else. Arising from your own decision not to be what you are, it is an attack on your identification. Attack is thus the way in which your identification is lost. Because when you attack, you must have forgotten what you are. And if your reality is God's, when you attack, you are not remembering Him. This is not because He is gone, but because you are actively choosing not to remember Him. If you realize the complete havoc this makes of your peace of mind, you could not make such an insane decision. You make it only because you still believe it can get you something you want. It follows then that You want something other than peace of mind. But you have not considered what it must be. Yet the logical outcome of your decision is perfectly clear, if you will only look at it. By deciding against your reality, you've made yourself vigilant against God and his kingdom. And it is this vigilance that makes you afraid to remember him. Well, that answered the question I asked earlier. Why are we so afraid?
Yeah.
I love how this just keeps answering everything we talk about.
Every time.
Every time.
100% of the time.
Yeah.
It's
And I've
amazing.
been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Very interesting. All right, we have a little under 10 minutes and I just don't know if we'll be able to have any time to talk after we read the next section.
It's
And I
pretty.
think it's gonna, yeah, I think it's gonna be a good section to talk about too, so. So we can chit chat a little bit more about what we read today, or if anybody else has other things they wanna bring up.
I'm gonna bug out. I have a friend that just texted me. Her mom fell, broke her shoulder, broke her hip. She had to go for an x-ray and she wants me to come help her get her out of the car.
All right,
Enough. Everybody have a great week.
all right, I'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.
All right, bye, Alicia.
Bye.
Okay, and then there were 4. Anybody have anything they want to discuss based on anything we read or anything else that's a burning desire to talk about?
It's unusual for me. I usually do. And I just don't. What's that about? It feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like most of what we read today kind of just tied it up in a nice, neat little bow, right? I feel like we just need to consider it and look at it and just think about our choices and what do we want to do? Do we want to remember? And we want to look on our brothers as ourselves and not be the other force fighting against it, right? And I guess that's how we choose God. We choose that to be in part of the at-one-ment or the atonement. And we see our brother as ourself. I love what you said, Pam. Love your brother, but trust God.
Yeah,
So powerful.
that was a wise realization she had.
Mm-hmm.
I think she studied the course.
Yeah, maybe. Interesting.
Yeah, what we've said goes along with the lesson 43, which I'm on today. God is my source. I cannot see apart from him.
Mm.
Yeah, to say that to everyone who comes to my mind. I cannot see you apart from him. I cannot see myself apart from him.
Yeah.
I've done this lesson so many times, but each time it just gets better and better.
Yeah. It's like you've stepped into a different part of the stream.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, if there's nothing more, I guess we should close for today. And Cynthia, we should talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll reach out
Exciting.
and get some more info on when you're coming down here. That's exciting news.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Then I guess I'll see you next week, hopefully. All right. Thanks for
Great.
joining. Good conversation. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks,
All
everyone.
right.
Everybody, thanks, Terry.
Bye.